Hello class, I just wanted to go over a few basics in Word. The first thing I want to talk about is setting up your font. You can set up a default font. If you click on this little arrow here, it'll bring up your font box. And you can choose the font that you want. Now, APA requires Times New Roman, so I would set that as my default for all documents. That means every time you open a document, it's going to automatically be New Times Roman 12 point. Now, of course, you can change that when you first start the document. You can just change your font and the size if it's required for whatever you're doing. Now, for paragraph, you can set up your default paragraph. And I have mine set to single with 0 point before and after. For APA, you would set it to double, but leave this before and after set to 0. You can also set your indents. So for instance, if you were doing your reference page, you would do a hanging. If you were doing APA, you would do first line. But remember, if you're doing a block formatted paper, which is one of the first papers that we're going to do, you want to set it to none and single spacing. So if you look at your paper, there's no way to tell where paragraphs end and start. So if you turn on the paragraph mark, it'll give you this funny little mark, and it will also show you any spaces that you have. That way you know if you've got a space at the beginning of a line that shouldn't be there. So for instance, this is the first paragraph. Then when I hit enter, and if we're doing block formatting, then I would type the second. There. Now for APA, you would want it to be double. So let me show you how to create that as double. So you could either highlight or just click in the paragraph and set it to double. And that's the difference, is it adds the space. So then you would not need this paragraph. Now another thing that you need to be aware of is that you should continue typing until the paragraph is complete. So for instance, I typed this sentence, but I hit enter at the end of the line rather than at the end of the paragraph. So you'll see that I hit enter at the end of D in do, and it capitalized the O and started a whole new line. The same with it. And it gave me an error because it thinks that I by itself is like I instead of the I in it. And we don't want that. We want the whole paragraph typed before you hit the paragraph, hit enter. So you see in this one paragraph we have 3 paragraph marks. Now Word 2010 doesn't seem to give the errors that 2012 does, but 13 I mean. So it really depends on what office you're using. Now to have your Word check for grammar, you need to go to Options, File Options, Proofing, and then down here make sure Mark Grammar Errors as you type. That way it only checks the spelling, but it also checks the grammar. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you. If you click in the paragraph, you can also do changes to your paragraph. And of course you can't really see that because let's correct this. And you can see that as I change things, it makes changes. And you want to do left aligned, align text left, and you'd only use center for your title. And let's see. Now to check your spelling at the end when you've completed your paper, you would check the ABC and see it says spelling and grammar. something else. Now say you've typed this paragraph and you've made it double spaced so you can and you want your whole paper double spaced. Highlight this paragraph and click the Format Painter, and then you see a little paint. Then when you click all the others, it would change the font. Now another way to do that is to highlight everything, go to your paragraph, and then change to double that way rather than doing the Format Painter. Now for instance, if this was your title, you would want to center it. And if you were doing an APA paper, you would want a first line indent. So you go back into paragraph and you change this to first line. Now if you're doing your reference, say this is our reference, you're going to want, on your reference page, you're going to want a hanging indent. And that's done there. And of course, because it doesn't have the rest of the, now you see that if I added the rest of the paragraph, then it would have the hanging, which means it starts here and everything else is below. Where if we do first line, you can, oops, it didn't do it. And you see the difference between a hanging indent and a first line indent. So first line indent would be for your paragraphs and a hanging indent would be for your reference. Let's see. So this is your ribbon, which has a lot of useful things, but if there's something that you want to do that you don't see there, remember you can always click the little arrow and it'll bring up a box, and it even shows you the box that's going to come up. So this is the font box that I showed you before. This turns on your clip art, or your clipboard. So for instance, if you're doing a lot of copying and pasting, it's a good idea to have the clipboard open. That's all I can think of for Word to get you started. Please feel free to call me or message me, send me a text or an email if you have any questions.